Hey y'all, it's Cowgirl Sierra, and today we are reading one of my stories that I have written. It's called A Scary Story That Happened on Christmas. Now, I decided to write this story because just in time for Christmas, and I wanted to make it a little bit scary. So, let's get Once upon a time, Brent, Haley, Sierra, and Kiara were staying in Weston, West Virginia with their parents, Steve and Kelly. It was around midnight on Christmas Eve. Brent awoke to a long, thin, tall creature standing by the edge of his bed. He was in shock and fear at what he was looking at. Imagine a tall human with claws as hands and an unnaturally hunched back. That is what Brent saw by his bed. He screamed and Steve ran in to check on him. "What's wrong?" Steve asked. I just saw a weird creature by my bed," Brent stuttered. When Steve barged into the room, the creature was nowhere to be found. "Where's the creature now?" Steve asked. I don't know," Brent shakily replied. He was terrified that if Steve left, he would be eaten by this creature. So, Brent did what any other young child would do. He asked Steve to stay with him. "Alright, I'll let you sleep in my room, okay?" Steve said. "Okay, that would be better," Brent responded. So Steve and Brent walked down the hallway to Steve and Kelly's room. Kelly was standing outside the door wondering what was going on. "What's wrong, baby?" Kelly asked Brent. "I saw a creature by my bed, Mama," Brent replied. "There's no such thing as creatures. What did the creature look like?" Kelly asked. "It was a thin, long, tall creature. Its back was unnaturally hunched over like an old woman or a witch's back. And it had claws instead of hands. And it was standing at the foot of my bed," Brent told. Kelly's face went pale, because she remembered seeing the same creature that Brent described when she was his age. "Baby, you are sleeping in our room for a few nights," Kelly aggressively said. "Why for a few nights?" Brent asked. "Because, son, when I was your age, I saw the exact creature standing at the foot of my bed, too," Kelly said. Brent thought she was just saying that to comfort him. But when he saw how terrified and pale her face was, he knew she was not joking around. "Okay, Mama, let's go to bed," Brent said. They walked in the room and jumped in bed. Brent slept between his mother and father. Soon, it was Christmas morning. Sierra, Haley, and Kiara were already in the living room, ready to unwrap their presents. They were unaware of the events that happened overnight, until Steve, Brent, and Kelly walked downstairs in their pajamas. They told the girls that after Christmas Day, they were moving to Ohio. They didn't explain why until the next day. When Sierra, Haley, and Kiara heard the news, they were in shock. So, the day after Christmas arrived, they took down their Christmas stuff and packed all of their belongings and put them in the truck. They drove to their new house in Jewett, Ohio. It took them 2 days to travel from Weston to Jewett. Steve, Kelly, Brent, Haley, Kiara, and Sierra are a happy family. But after this incident happened to them, they are very paranoid. But they'll get over it in a few days. When they arrived at their new house, they were stunned at the size of it. It was a mansion. But when they started moving their stuff in, Kiara noticed the neighbor. It was a creepy looking old man. He was just sitting at his window and watching them move in. She didn't tell no one. She just helped her family move things into the mansion. Soon, the man walked away from his window. Brent and Sierra sat in the living room talking to each other. Suddenly, Kiara walked in. She sat down in between her siblings. Did you guys see that old man standing in his window watching us earlier? Kiara asked. No, Brent and Sierra both said. That's weird. I could have sworn there was an old man standing in his window, Kiara thought. Soon, Haley walked into the living room. Hey, Haley, did you see that man standing in his window watching us moving earlier? Kiara asked. Yeah, I didn't know it was a man. I thought it was just something that they put in front of the window, Haley remembered. Brent, Kiara, and Sierra were spooked because they thought Kiara was just crazy. But since Haley said she remembered seeing the same thing, they believed them. So they just dropped the subject. Steve and Kelly walked in the living room and Kiara asked them if they saw the man. Mom, Dad, did you see the man watching us from his window earlier? Kiara asked. No, they said. When they said that, Brent and Sierra didn't believe them again. So Steve and Kelly went to the kitchen. A little while later, they saw the same man walking down the street. He looked through the window and gave them a creepy little wave. They just sat there and watched him while he watched them. Soon the man kept walking. Brent, Haley, Kiara, and Sierra were relieved that they didn't have to see the creepy old man again for a while. They turned on the radio. Suddenly, a news report was broadcasted over the radio. It was for a creepy old man that lived next to them. Sierra, Brent, Haley, and Kiara turned off the radio and ran into the kitchen to tell Kelly and Steve. Kelly and Steve were disturbed, but they just brushed it off. Later that night, Kelly and Steve let the kids stay up late. They were going to a party in the next town. So the four of them decided to access the dark web. If you don't know what the dark web is described as the internet under the internet. It contains all the dark and disturbing things that you can't find on the normal internet. They accessed the dark web at about 10 p.m. They were looking at some illegal websites that the dark web has to offer. Soon, they came across a movie. It was called The Visiting. They were hooked from the cover. It was a white background with the words The Visiting written in black Arial font. When Kiara, Haley, and Sierra weren't looking, Brent ordered the movie to come to their house. The girls were very upset because they did not want anything coming to their house from the dark web. So they tried to get over it. Soon they decided to log off the dark web and try to forget about it. A few hours went by. Suddenly, there was an aggressive knock at the door. They knew it wasn't their parents because they had a key. Sierra is the only one who knows how to operate a gun. So she grabbed a pistol from the coffee table and walked to the door with Haley, Brent, and Kiara as her backup. She opened the door and saw a tall figure holding an axe. Suddenly, Haley screamed from the back of the house. So Brent, Sierra, and Kiara ran to the back of the house to see Haley looking at an identical-looking man holding a knife. So it comes to show, to not order a visitor from the dark web if you really want one. The end. So, that's where the story ends. I hope y'all like it, and See ya.